I think we're gonna go live soon. Yeah, we're live. How's everyone doing out there? Give us a few minutes here. We will be going. All right. If you caught the last map making class, you will know that today we're going to start on doing some terrain editing. But before we get started, I wanted to show you a few things that will be very helpful while you're working on your terrain. Also, before we get started, I wanted to say we're going to give away at the end of the stream a copy of this Stardock Fences program that I use, which comes in really handy for organizing your icons on your desktop. You can pretty much draw boxes, label them, put folders in them. You can also have boxes that you draw linked to folder portals, so if I wanted to have my downloads folder go right onto the desktop, then I could click on create folder portal and point it to the folder and it'll show it right there. So we'll be giving away a copy of that at the end of the stream. It's 10 points per entry. You earn points by watching our streams and you can enter it at any time. Other than that, where we left off last week, we have our map class, and our map is in our map class folder with our files. I also am going to use the money mod for demonstrations, the money mod cheat, which you can find that by typing exclamation point and money. It'll bring you to that website. Basically, when you're testing a map, you want to buy vehicles real quick. You don't want to have to go and sell off all the equipment, especially on this map. There's hardly anything to sell. So if you throw that in there, it'll give us an easy way to get around the map and get money for testing. In the map itself, I downloaded a roads pack. The link is exclamation point roads, and it'll bring you to that website. And basically, inside our map folder, we have models, but I'm going to create a new folder here just to keep things organized. You can put it in with your models. I like to always have a folder named objects inside the map folder. And with the road pack, basically all these files here you won't even need. These are just links to YouTube and text. Anything like what we're looking for are the files that are in here, which is just the road i3D and a road 3D DDS file. So I'm going to actually copy that folder there and paste it into my objects folder. That way it'll be available when we go into our map. So we have the objects folder. The next thing I wanted to show you is how to grab a simple object. And I know I go too fast for a lot of people to keep up, but you can always watch this later. A lot that I want to show you today and get it in an hour so we can get to Big Daddy's class right afterwards. I have a copy of the PV15 map already unzipped, and what I'm going to do is load that up in the editor. You can use any map that you found a piece of a road or something. The reason why I want to get the roads in as well is sometimes when you're creating your terrain, you might want to lay out roads, the road network. You might not. It all depends on people's styles. But sometimes it's easier to see where you want to build things by having pieces of road in the map. or maybe coloring terrain where you want your main farm to be, or different ways to do that. But we're going to get a couple of these pieces in there and show you how to use them. PV15 map, of course, will take forever to load up because it's big. But we're going to do a basic export of a large road segment directly into the map that we're working on. Oh, everybody got a sneak peek preview. You never know where I leave off with the editor. I'm going to scroll. I hope last week if I went too fast for you on things, it was really an introductory. And the basic thing is the moving commands. Right click to move forward and back. Left click to spin around. If you got that part down, then that's all you really needed to know for last week's session. I am going to click on a segment of the road, and you see I have it in the box called Streets here. If I highlight that, I have this whole segment of streets that I have in the map. Maybe that one's a little bigger than I want. Let's see if I can find a smaller segment that is already laid out. That looks to be much better. Once you have the objects or the folder, I'm going to select the whole folder rather than all of the individual objects. So I have that whole street layout just as is that I could actually import into my map. Once you have that folder selected, so everything in it selected, you just go up to File, Export Selection with Files. And what we're going to do is go to our desktop, find our map folder, which we have it labeled, I labeled mine map class, find the map. Inside the map folder we have our objects folder again, and we'll create a new folder called, I'm going to just name it PV Roads. You don't want to put any spaces when you're making these folders as well. You can use an underscore or anything, but you don't want any spaces in your folder name. Or your file names for that matter. So we'll double click, open that folder, and I'm going to just make myself a new i3D file that's called Roads, and click Save. What that did, once it says it's ready down here, which it was pretty fast, is we'll exit out of this map. And give it time to exit. And I'm going to go back to my other map. In the objects folder, I now have the PV Roads, which is a Roads i3D that I created. And it imported all the files from my map in the directories that they are saved in, but they're all right in your map now, as well as the road section. So now let's go back to the map i3D file. Open that up and we'll see what we have. Yeah, it's saved on YouTube. If you missed the last tutorial, just play it back and you guys can catch up on the mod switcher. You basically just want to have all your programs separate from everything that you're playing the game with. So here we are back on our default map, and we have some road segments to bring in. So the import i3D file button right up top, the one with the plus next to it, we would click on that, and you'll see we're in the right map class. Map, we browse to our objects, and the first I'm going to grab the road i3D from the road pack that I imported, and just click on it, open. And if you remember from last week, if I take it, basically imported several pieces of road, from an S piece, a T piece, 100 meter, 50 meter, 10 meter, but they're all in the center of the map. They all imported underneath the ground down in the center. You can see them all overlaid. Lots of road pieces. Some go uphill, some go downhill. You can find the one you want. We'll take a long straight, for example, which is the 100 meter. It highlighted it right up here. Find out where you want to put it. We're going to do a Control B, which, yeah, I guess for lack of better, I don't know why they use B, but we'll call it bring the object here. Control B, left Control B, and click, and there is our object road flush with the ground right where we put it. You can move it around there, highlight it, drag it with the arrows on the box, put it where you want. When you have your road in the map, obviously you're going to want to make longer roads. So the Control D for duplicate gives me another section of that 100-meter road, which if I zoom out, I can drag. Here, I'm going to drag it the other way because sometimes it's easier to line up your seams. And you just butt it right up. You don't want to overlap it if at all possible, but you don't want to see a gap in between either. Overlapping, you'll get the flashing that you get from two objects overlapping perfectly together. You can click off on the terrain so you can see no seam at all, which is perfect. And maybe you want to take a turn, so we'll go back under the map and take a look at the pieces we have again. We have a nice curved piece here. We'll grab that one. I'll go back up above terrain. Control B, click. And I have the nice flat piece. We're just going to drag that right into place as well. And you can see you're starting to lay out some roads. You can try to visualize or create. You can use the hills. We'll get into how you do the hills at some time, hopefully during this broadcast. If not, eventually we will. But you're starting to lay out a road network. It makes it easier to see where you might want to place your main farm and that type of thing. So bringing in roads is going to be a very... Some people might want to do it ahead of time and then build around the roads, while others might just carve their whole terrain out and then figure out where they're going to put their roads after. There's several ways, depending on your style, that you can do that. I'm going to also bring in, which is the other way, is if I go back to my objects and select the PV roads section that I did, I can now import that whole section. You see the streets folder just like we copied it out of the other map. I'll highlight that, and I basically grabbed them out of, if you haven't recognized the 2013 version of Hagenstedt. Now when you get a section, you may get it floating in the air when you do the Control B click. It all depends on where those sections inside that folder are. So you just kind of got to keep that arrow in mind where it is. Bring it down to the terrain level that you're working at. And we have that whole section of terrain. There's the edge of the road. You can see it right there. We want to get it down the lowest part of the road section. That looks pretty decent, so you're not running over too big of a curb. And voila, gives you a whole big road section, at least to start. We'll have to bring the terrain up to certain levels here where it's floating, but the lowest section of the road is already on ground level, so we could actually start building flat places in here, putting factories in or whatever we wanted to build, and give us an idea where we might be able to create mountains, which is really what the whole thing about this lesson is. The other things that you're going to want, though, also in your map that you're going to want to be creating around is your water. In this map here, the guy that made the starter map has all you need in one folder. You will see a water planes folder. When I highlight the water planes, it highlights every water plane that's was in Bjornholm, and he has them just laid out in weird places. You don't want to move the water planes out of the water plane folder in 2015 version, because that's what gives them the ability when you go into the water, you go too deep, you drown type thing. I'm going to select water plane main, which highlights the main water plane, which was the river in Bjornholm. And you can see that whole outline of the river is right there, right at ground level. Now, you might want to start with something smaller like the water plane from the lumberyard, which is right over here. And basically wherever that box is, you could actually see the water shimmer on this one, is where you can build a pond underneath it, or any water feature in the map. So placing these, just placing them whereabouts you want water to be, we'll show you how to cut them out very soon, but it gives you an idea of what you could do with the water. Get your basic layout how you want it. I think I'll bring, for now, grab my arrow, which sometimes when it's far away it's hard to position yourself where you can see the arrow in the water at the same time. But we're going to try to drag that water right over near the road segment so I know where it is when I'm going to look for it. Close enough. There's one other major thing that you need to know before you start drawing your terrain, and that is all the maps have basically what I call sea level, and I'm going to demonstrate that as well. What sea level is, no matter even, is basically an invisible water plane that you can't go lower than or you're going to drown, even if there is no water there. And this base level that the map is at right now is just slightly above sea level. With the terrain sculpting mode on, we're going to get a circle, and the first thing I want to teach you is the replace mode. I'm going to turn it into a little bit smaller. We'll make it, you can make the circle any size, but I want to be able to fit it into where I'm going to put a little pond right here. So 10 looks about good. Now, holding the left control and the R key, you see this replace value? This doesn't always work. Left control R on the terrain will give you the height of the terrain that is underneath the point where my cursor is, which it already is set to, I believe, 81, because it, yeah, 81.794. For a lake, you want to obviously go deeper than 81.794. So let's say we make the lake 3 meters deep here, or the little pond. We'll change it to 78.794. And basically what it does with the replace function on is it's going to replace whatever's under my cursor with that new level of depth. You could see me chewing out underneath where I placed my water plane a section of the terrain is dropping down. It might be hard to see, but you'll see it very quickly once now that I know where the water plane edges are. I'm going to turn off my terrain editing mode, back up just a little so I can see my arrows, and I'm going to just drop the water plane below the surface of the ground, and you can see that I have a lake with a little bit of water. You can make the shape, as long as you don't go outside the edges of the water plane, you can make the lake any size that you want. And you could do the same thing with the river that was over here. If we go back to the water plane main, and you don't even have to use all the water planes. So literally this long river one, I could actually just use this section to put a pond in. I might want to just use this section to build a smaller river, and I can move it onto the map anywhere I want by just moving the arrows if I wanted to move it in a little bit, and use the same technique to build. But we're also building everything right now on the base plane, which we can't go any lower, but water is fine to build. And I did mention to you I wanted to show you what happens at the base level. So I'm going to go back to the arrows for terrain, and we are at 78, meters. We're digging our hole. These values here we are going to get into very soon, but it makes basically is how hard of a hole we're digging. And I'm going to dig a little bit bigger hole to make sure this works. I'm going to put it down to the 75 meter range right next to our pond. And we will, for the first time, save our map with those two big craters. One's a lake and one is one without the water in it. Map is saved. I'm going to just minimize it. Go back to my desktop screen. I already have the mod switcher folder open. Switch to my map class folder by clicking the map class button that I set up last week and launch the FS15 game. We're working right out of the map class folder, so we don't have to worry about swapping the map in, zipping it up or anything at this point. We're going to select the empty save game file. And if you notice when I do that, one very important note that people sometimes, I've been scrolling down because I actually have a save games in 3 and 4 that are in a different folder, and you do not want to overwrite those save games. So remember, you might even want to keep a list for which save games are which, because it saves all the save games in the same spot. You might want to keep a list of which save game slots not to use because you're already using them in another folder. So I'm using save game folder 5. We'll start a normal. There's my sample mod map. And we're going to get into figuring out how to do all of this stuff at some point. Adding your new pictures and your new briefings and all that fun stuff. And here we are. I'm sorry if I'm missing any questions, because I'm concentrating on this, but every now and then I glance over. And we don't want the guided tour. Dang it. Here, let's try that again. Won't take long. I don't want to go through the guided tour. Here we are, halfway through the lesson, 20 minutes into the lesson, and I haven't even gotten to terrain editing. Alright, this is where it imported me, right over here in the middle of his buildings, because this is where he has the import spot currently selected. But let's see what I can find that might be close by. Basically, I'm going to use the money mod. I know where he has the default point set, which is right control alt and the 0 key, and I added $1 million. Now I can buy a tractor. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. We don't. Oh, I guess I do have to move. There's no more space. Maybe I have a tractor already sitting there. We'll take this one. Maybe I'll find my way around this blank map. But here's some of the road we put in. I believe, anybody remember what corner we're actually working on? Somewhere over that way. We're going to have to reset the vehicle spawn-in point on the map so that we know where it is for testing purposes. We can drive on roads that go in the air right now if we want to. But right now we have a big flat map, and you can see objects floating in the air, and somewhere up here we have the roads we dropped in. And a line going near the road. That is actually a spline, which we can unhighlight that so it's not visible, but not necessary at this point. And here's the road we put down. You can notice there's not very many seams at all. It's hard to see where the seams are, so it's looking good. Over here we have the two ponds we just made. One is actually a pond with the water playing from the pond in it, and we can learn how to do the terrain texturing at some point. Probably next week we'll do some more on terrain texturing. But there's the little pond we put in. But I wanted to show you what sea level looks like. You cannot go, you'll get this blue tint, no water there, but we are at sea level. It's right down there, and it has the same effect. You basically can't build your map below sea level, or you get the same thing that happens. Don't drive too deeply into the water. And so from this point, we basically are going to be building our map upwards. Close down the game here. Switch back over. Back to the replace mode, which is, I got the circle selected, and remember the left control and the R key should change this replace value here. Sometimes it does not work, but it did, back to 81.794, and I'm going to do that to fill in the lake that I did not want right here. Now we're going to get into more of designing your terrain. You know how to cut out a lake? You're going to do it with the terrain editing mode and basically all these functions here. The radius obviously shows you how big your circle is going to be. You can make it quite big, and as a matter of fact, even though the slider only goes to 50, you might want to go crazy, especially on a larger map, and make your circle 200, and yeah, you can do a huge section. Another good reason to do that is if you wanted to do a split level map, we can go square and say I want to just really quickly raise up this whole section of terrain. We already know the base terrain is at 81.794. Let's bring it up a whole 20 meters to 101, or roughly 20 meters. We're using the replace function, and I can easily bring up, even though it doesn't look like much from up here, I can easily bring up the terrain level in this section 20 meters higher than the base level. So it's quite a big cliff. You could notice that I just covered over this road, and we're a little bit high if we want the top end of this road to meet. So we'll just mess with the replace level down to 91. I'm going to go with a little bit smaller here. Radius for this of 20. Click out of it, so, and then that's a little low. Let's bring it up to 95. Now we're getting closer to where the top of the road meets. And 97 would be covering it, so we're getting close. Let's go back to 96 and see where we are. 96 is a little low. You're just going to have to find the right number to bring it right up to the edge of the road. Okay, now we got 96.5, looks pretty good. And maybe a little bit higher. 96.7, get those edges in the ground so we're not seeing them. 96.8 looks better. There we go. Now we got that part of the road flush. And we covered up this part here. So we know that from this point we're going to need a little bit lower. When you get into finer detail areas, you're going to want to just use a finer detail brush. I'll bring it down to 10. Now we'll start going backwards at 96.7 from this end. And you see we lost a little bit more. Now we can work it back to 96.6. And basically we're going to level it off, so it actually is giving you the, whoops, if you forget the decimal point, that's what happens. But that's why the undo button is right up there. 96.5. We're just going to keep working our way back till we had the whole road relatively level in the terrain. Now, obviously you're not going to want a lot of these sharp edges. So I'm going to get into the different types of objects that you can make. First of all, there is a smooth button, and you can take it and turn on the smooth, and if smooth out that into a nice hill, so you really don't even need a road. If you wanted to make a road that you could drive up, you could just smooth back your terrain with the smooth button on, which is left mouse button, I switch to smooth. The other three values that change the way your brush works are these here: the opacity, the hardness, and the value. And we're going to give you a demonstration on what each one does by using a simple box. And we know that I'm going to left control again, and R key sets my replacement value to terrain level again, and we're just going to do a, well, let's just switch it to add mode. So add doesn't have a replacement value. It can go up, 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 and up. And as I build, just by moving the mouse a little, with all of the opacity, hardness, value, and the opacity, hardness, and the value, you can see what type of hill I just created. We'll do that again. Kind of pulls it up pretty quickly. If I were to go to the extreme, now I'm going to use extremes for demonstration purpose, on the opacity, you notice how it's going smaller, and I get a relatively sharper walls going up and down. If I go, let's say, we'll put that one back to 1, and let's bring the hardness level back down to 0.1. Now you could see I'm getting more of a point, but definitely a lot more slope to the walls that I'm bringing up. And with the value at 0.1, you're going to get 0.1. And we build up, we're going to get the same walls but much more plateau on the top when your value, and much steeper walls. You notice how it's almost going straight up. This is great if you wanted to put a brick retaining wall around something. But those are the three values, and you can literally use those in your to create very different terrain type shapes. And there are some that I like to use, which would be, for instance, I kind of freehand my maps in the beginning, and I will use a 0.5, 0.5, and a 0.5, and I start at one end of the map and say, okay, I want to put in a mountain range, and a mountain range is going to be quite large, so we'll set it up with a round as well, round brush. Yeah, we'll maybe even do 100 for the mountain range, and then I just start, oops, not 10. And we'll pull up this whole section, just slowly dragging it across the map. And you can see the mountain range is building. And that's a pretty darn big mountain, actually. If you're in the game, that's going to be a huge hill. But when you're pulling up the map at that setting, you do get these sharp edges. And I don't want sharp, I want to create a smooth mountain, so we're just going to go back, and I'm going to turn the smoothness on really hard, really fast smoothing by putting them all back to 1, and then go to the smooth, and then you could see it really shaping the mountain down with the level around it. I'm running along the seam, brings the mountain, blends it with the lower terrain. See, if you're running along the seam, if I was doing it up here, it's just going to start flattening the top, but I'm running it along the seams of the mountain because I'm actually bringing the terrain out here up to the level and smoothing the edges. If you wanted to do a smaller, like, rolling hill type mountain, or rolling hills, you might want to start with a lower settings of 0.1. We'll go to 0.2. I'm going to do a really slow 0.1 with a brush of 50. And let's see, I might even be lifting it so slow. Oh, I'm still on smooth. Go back to add. I'm lifting it so slow that I want to go, let's bring it up to 0.5. Now you can see it raising a much smaller hill to put into the map to give us the hills that we want. And you really don't have to do any smoothing at all on the edges of these little rolling hills. Those values are just something you're going to have to learn to play with and get used to as you're going along. Added a nice little small hill, and you're going to have to figure out, you know, where you want to put things along the edge. We'll raise up along the edge of water or whatnot. Maybe put a hill over by our lake. Just a little bit of a hill up here. Now I wanted to show you one other thing too here. You have the replace limit. The replace limit basically will allow you to replace only higher or only lower things if you have the selection set. So let's do a quick demo of that. We're going to make a pretty quick wall with a 1 and 0.1. So we have a nice, and we'll grab the square. I want to put a very sharp, I don't know why, but just for demo purposes, I'm going to grab a smaller radius square of 20. And I want to build up a pretty quick wall right behind my lake here. Now, from this wall, I am going to set it so I can show you this. If I set the replace limit to lower, I can build up anywhere around this lake, but being the lake edge is at the it'll slope it in, but it's not going to fill in the lake. Actually, it is filling in the lake. Replace limit lower. Why is it doing that? Basically, it's not supposed to touch anything, replace anything that's lower than the terrain value. And if I did it likewise with higher, it'll raise up stuff, but if I was to go to remove, oh, that's because I didn't have replace set. Duh. You have to have replace if you're using a replace feature. Alright. It'll replace anything that is above the water level, but it won't replace the water because it's below her. See, even I forget sometimes if I haven't used them a long time. I just killed half my lake. But that's why we have this. Undo a bunch of steps. Now with the replace limit set, if you have a replace only higher, then I gotta make a new hill. It will only replace objects that are higher. It won't go into the lake. If I have replace only lower, it won't go into the mountain, but it would fill in the lake. So that's what the replace limits are for. And you can create quite a interesting terrain with all the different settings that we have here. And if you wanted to do, like I said, a sharp cliff, you can actually just turn down your hardness values of 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and just use a very, very small radius for the top of the edge and just put on your smooth tool and just smooth down the edge of your top of your cliff. You can also do some pretty wild mountains by having a really sharp circle set on add. We'll make it a little bit bigger, and we'll make it round, and just pull up some very quick random mountains in the map here. Now that's all easy. Now a lot of this is hard to see. Remember, and this is very brief for today, and we're almost getting near the end, but actually we got about 20 minutes left. You can go to the texture layer paint mode, which is the very next button, and experiment during the week by just selecting dirt, for instance. But we don't want a mountain in dirt, we want a mountain in rock, so we'll select rock, and then you start seeing how your mountain looks, and we'll get into more of that and how to actually get it with the replace limits and everything, so you're not painting the grass again around the mountain. But you can see it coming alive on your terrain. This pretty wild looking mountain. By just painting around, and you can mess with the basics of that. That's going to be all next week's lesson, is actually painting terrain, but the basics of just selecting the terrain coloring tool, selecting your painting tool to, for instance, you know you're going to want to put in this square a big parking lot for that new factory. You can do that ahead of time if you wanted to. Just paint it in there. You may even not want to go with these types of roads, and then, or you find a place where you want an intersection from the road where you want to. I like to start with about a 4 radius square to put in a dirt road off of the main road, and usually I end up making it 4 and then going 1 block out so I don't have to be exactly correct. But you might want to paint some of your extra roads in, or plot in that, okay, this is where I want my main farm to be, right here on this, so I'm going to just temporarily save spot for that main farm by putting down a nice cobblestone landing area here for it. And it's just a placeholder at this point, just to give you an idea of where you're going to put things on the map. And you could already see we have quite a bit already on there. And I'm not necessarily creating a map at this time, but hey, you never know. There is the leaves texture, which we're going to make this into a nice foresty hill maybe sometime. So I'll just paint this hill so it makes it a little forest equipment. And it gives you an idea of where you're putting things. Once again, there's going to be a raffle at the end of this broadcast, and I will be giving away the Stardock software, which I use to organize my desktop and folders. And as you can see, it also allows you to have multiple desktops. This is actually the one I work on for all of our stuff. And this desktop over here are the games I can't play anymore because I have no time. But I'll be giving away a copy of the Stardock software, and it costs 10 points per entry. You're getting points just by watching. You can check them by typing exclamation point points, and you can enter by typing the exclamation point raffle space and followed by a number of entries that you want. Just a quick announcement for that for anybody that showed up late. I'm going to finish coloring this mountain here with my forestry area, so I know that that's what I want here. I'm going to make a nice forest on this mountain. And those are mostly all the tools you're going to need. You just need an imagination from there on where you're going to put your hills. And if you want to know anything else, I don't know if I mentioned, but it costs 10 points per entry for this drawing. So you can, if you have 40 points, you can enter 4 times, and you can earn more points by watching more of my broadcasts. But you can't get points by watching them on YouTube, so stop in if you're watching on YouTube tomorrow. And the next map making class will also be on Friday again. We're going to try to do them every Tuesday and Friday. So there, we got a forest, which we'll show eventually. We got a nice forest mountain. We've made some roads. We've cut out a lake. I'm going to cut out another lake over here right on this map by, once again, I'm at sea level. Replace level is at 81. Going to go to replace, and I'm going to drop it down 3 meters to 78.794 and dig in. Oops. Don't do that, or you'll have leaves in the bottom of your lake. Cover back up, okay. Switch your tool to this one, which is your terrain editing, and replace and turn off your replace limit and dig out another little area for water over here. Have the water plane selected. We're going to drop it down. It's already right just below the edge of the map. And now I'm going to go back into the map and show you all the messes we made. Actually, before we go, we had one issue, and that was me being able to buy a vehicle. I have to find, he has all I need apparently in here, so I'm pretty sure in triggers and stuff, let's see if it's there. Store place. He has it stuck over there, and this store place under triggers and stuff is where when you buy something from the store you're going to appear, and just temporarily because we're working over here by the road, we're going to take our store place and we're going to do a control, left control B, click. Did it move it in here? There we go. And it brings the store place point there, and then underneath store place is a store place end. We're going to drag it in the direction of the blue arrow over to here. Now what that basically does is any new vehicles, just like when you purchase at the vehicle shop, will fall in between points 1 and point 2 when we buy them now. So that'll be very handy, moving your store places. Future, you got your career start point. If I want to move that, I control B, click, and I will now, whenever I start my career, I will import right where this marker is, right there. And now let's save the map and I'll show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to go back. I already make sure I have my map class folder selected in my mod switcher. FS15. Let's go back to my save game slot, load my sample mod map that we're creating. Be sure to tune in after this to Big Daddy. It's BIGDADY 012678. We'll get the link up there and I will host him as well, if I can figure out how. He will be doing a editing of a mod after this class. We don't want to do the guided tour, but you can see I did import right at the point that I wanted to come in, right on this side of the road. And now if this all worked right, left control alt 0 because I have the money mod installed, and let's purchase a tractor that we can drive around in. Oh, I don't know, I like this one. No more space. Apparently I didn't get that all correct, or something's messed. It worked earlier when I was testing, but anyway, it imported me here. I can't buy any vehicles yet, darn it. We'll have to drive around and see what I did. Let's head over this way. And you can look at the different types of hills we created while we were map editing, and I will figure out just why that vehicle sell place did not work. I probably dragged the wrong arrow in the wrong direction or something. It's been so long since I set mine up and I forget just as easy as anyone else would on some of these commands, so I actually give myself a tutorial all over again before I do this class every day. There's our lake. We've got some rough hills over here. We've got our road section, and that's the little hill that I said I would put a forest on. You can see our hills starting to come alive in the background over there as well. And it's actually starting to look like a map, although not a very well thought out one. It's just a bunch of things thrown together. But it gives you guys some tools to get started shaping your terrain. Again, if you have any issues trying to create anything that I might not have covered, use our forums. I will jump in there and try to help as much as possible. I might even have to, at times, I'm going to put a whole big forest on this sometime when we bring in trees. I might even have to do a separate video to cover some of the extra things that we didn't get to, or that I might have skipped over. I did not see your tweet to me unsparring, but I will check out my tweets and Twitter account and see what's going on. And you want to ask me about 2.0. 2.0 is in the process. If you want to know a lot about the 2.0 map, Fridays are previews. Friday nights at 9 p.m. right after the map making class, Friday. And even at this point, a lot of the stuff that's going in is last minute, ooh, that's a great idea. Or stuff that we're still trying to figure out how to get it in the map. So it's still quite a ways away. Anybody have any questions or need me to go over anything before we pick a winner in the drawing? Use your points to get in the draw. Let's see if we have any entries real quick. Nobody wants to get the drawing. That's fine. I have no entries. Anybody wants to get in that drawing, they'll win. 10 points to enter a copy of Stardock software. Or save them. Maybe we'll have something else in the future. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to help you out. It's one thing that I've found where desktop has been a great help organizing and finding my files when I need them. You can see all the mess we did on the terrain. How big can a map be? The one we are doing here is there's the lighthouse I made float last week, by the way, is a single size. Currently 4x map, which is 4 times this size, is the only one that can be done properly. You can make a 16x map, but outside the center 4x map size, you cannot plant fields or grow crops, which we will get into field marking and doing those as well in another broadcast. Just like exclamation point raffle space and the number of entries you want to get in the raffle. And let me tell you, that software does have a lot of features that I haven't even gotten into. But you can see we got a whole bunch of weird looking hills over here that we created. Hopefully that gives you guys a good head start. We're going to start drawing fields on that type. Thank you, Scott, for throwing that up there. And there's nothing left over here. And I will have to figure out just why. Maybe I could do that real quick. I haven't set a vehicle start point in so long that my guess is, let's see, all I need, triggers and stuff. We needed the vehicle shop trigger store place 1. And store place 1 end. Let me try moving store place 1 end in the direction pointing toward this. I bet you that's what it is. You got to be between the blue arrows, so it'll probably import facing that direction. Let's try that out real quick, see if that's what the problem was. X-Man, you need a space between the word raffle and actually I need the word raffle, and the number 1. Gonna test that store place real quick and see if it's working now. It's basically telling me I don't have room, and that's usually because my points are on top of each other. So here we are. Give me some money. See if I can buy a vehicle this time with any luck. There we go. There's my tractor. Yep, and it was facing between those arrows. So you want to drag it the 2 markers and keep the blue arrows far apart from each other. Don't drag it in the direction of the blue arrow. But it's going to put it in between the red arrows facing the blue arrows wherever you have your sell point. So back in the map one more time. The store point is starting store place 1. It's facing, vehicles will be facing the blue arrow, and then store place end is over here, so they would line up from here to over here. Now, let's say, for instance, we'll set this one back to 0, so they're both on top of each other. And I don't want the store to be my vehicles, I want them to be lining up down the road. You can either swing the marker around, or just change it to 0, 90 and 0, or minus 90. Minus 90 would be flip that blue arrow the other way. I want it to be facing the road. Then once you have the blue arrow facing that way, grab the store place end, drag it off to the side, and store place 1 is created. Whenever a vehicle loads in that we purchase at the store, it will be between that arrow and that arrow, right in this area where we might want to create our store later. Now let's check and see. Check our store place arrows. 1 there, end it right there. Save our map. Whenever you do a save, you gotta quit the game completely
entered channel
for you to get all the map changes. Hey, Stale, question, comment, concern? Did I miss anything?
You're showing just a tractor. You're not showing you moving your arrows around and adjusting.
It didn't show the arrows adjusting?
Not now. You're on a tractor.
Maybe it got stuck? I'm not even on a tractor.
Move to farming channel.
Oh. I see what I did. Okay. So anyway, you guys missed this all because I forgot to shut down the game completely and still twitching a little bit. Alright, so basically what I did was store place. We'll run one more time through this. Sorry about that. Getting used to this Twitch overlay. What's going. I had the game running over my screen. I took the store place and we found out that it's going to go in the direction of the blue arrow. So the blue arrow was facing in that direction, and our store place loads in between that blue arrow and that blue arrow. What I wanted to do, and I created a little slab real quick here, is take it so the store places are loading in toward the road, and then I have my starting arrow, which is store place 1, and then the store place end arrow is at the bottom of the other end of the slab. They both should be blue arrows facing that direction. Means all our vehicles we purchase right now will be facing that direction between the 2 arrows, right across from the street from where I put the spawn point. Which reminds me, if we go back to the career start point again, the blue arrow is the direction that you're going to be facing when you start. So let's turn that till we get it to, it's going to be just 90 degrees facing the store. And I raise it up a little bit off the terrain. If you saw it, after I Control B click, I raise it a little off the terrain just to make sure when I click it, just by pulling up on the green arrow, just to make sure I don't spawn under the terrain, which can happen if you're in like a little gully or something. So just pull it up just a little bit, you'll drop in. Now I'm right across the street. Blue arrow is facing the direction I should be facing when I go into the game this time. Yep, separate folder for any map that you may have. And that's why I use this bar. And you can see I have my default map. I click here and I can load right from my default folder. My work in progress, our server folder, the PVX project, which is the map after this one. This is actually where I'm working on 2.0. That's a 16x version folder. This is the one we released to you guys, so if I have to test something for any of you, I have all the mods in there. And my map class folder, which I'm using now. And I can also just click on select folder, grab any folder, like Andres, which is one that I've been also working on. Click OK, name it Andres, and click. Now I have a button for Andres folder as well on my bar, and I can easily click on it to click to Andres. So that's the mod folder switcher program, which you can get by typing a command called !switcher. Created it myself, something you might want to try. It's a lot less confusing than Mod Commander. It only basically does one thing, and that is switch to your folder to whatever mods folder you're using. Just run the setup.exe file, you'll get a little icon, place it on your desktop like this, and that will take care of that. Now let's go back one more time, look at our map and see if our spawn points are correct the way we want them. Notice I never save a game. I'm going to start on easy mode this time, just for the heck of it. I never save when I'm testing unless I got to test something multiple times, but my folder would be really full of tests. I'd have to delete them all the time. And we're really just testing two things right here. Where I spawn in, what direction I'm facing, which is at the road because we spun it around. I'm going to get a little extra money, and now I will buy some tractors. And you will see when I go back, boom, they're lined up from the start point heading toward the end point right where I purchased them. So if this was my store parking lot, we have our tractors importing at the starting point. And this wasn't even going to be about that, but you do need to have these things set up so when you're going to start cruising your map and testing things out, it just makes it easier. And you don't even put them where you're working. Move them later. But that way you don't have to drive all over the place to check out and see if we have our pond and how it looks, you know, or the mountain that's way over there we won't have to drive to. But that's basically why I wanted to get the roads in here, show you how to start your lake levels, and get you building some terrain. Anybody has any last questions? We will do a drawing, I think, and then we'll go, because I'm just over the hour. We will see what we have for the giveaway. Anybody? I'll give you just another minute here to get in the drawing. We do have some entries in there. 6. And what I will need, if you are the winner, is you to send me via the Twitch link, which I will have to put up real quick, message me through Twitch with your email address, and then after this broadcast we'll switch over to Big Daddy's. Before Big Daddy's is ended, you should have it in your email box, and I will keep up on his stream and make sure that you got it if you're watching over there, or you can catch me next time on Friday and let me know if you got it. And let's see. I'm going to pull up the Twitch stream. I don't even have it running. Make sure you send a message to me via the Twitch stream by clicking on your message box, and I will get you a copy of Stardock Fences software, which has some great features like creating a folder portal. I can now go in and take my downloads folder, and we're going to select it, and voila, on my desktop I have a folder. Doesn't show the background because Windows Arrow is off because of the OBS software, but it'll come in. There's all the downloads right on my desktop. I can remove that folder. I can create another folder, create a fence, give it a name, selection. I can organize it and send all new folders that I create to this fence. New folders now go to the fence I created. So if I went on the desktop and created a new folder, notice it jumped over here, but these guys got a little out of hand. That happens every now and then. But anyhow, it works wonderful. I think I had a conflict because I already have a new folder fence over here. And we will do the giveaway. OBS causing me issues again. That works. Awesome. Giveaway time. Giveaway. Let's see who we got for an winner. Thomas112776. Congratulations. You won a copy of the Fences software, which does interfere with my OBS a little bit, so I lost a little viewing. But that's when I created that Windows Arrow folder. You shouldn't do that while you're doing broadcast. It came back. And send me a message in that little Twitch message with your email address, and I will get your copy, download link, and you can start using Stardock Fences, which is really awesome. It also gives you so many desktops that you can literally create as many as you want just by going over to the edge of the screen, dragging, and you have a new one. That is going to be it for this broadcast, guys. I am going to set you guys up on Big Daddy's stream over here if you want to join him for modding. I suppose he's ready. And Thomas, make sure you message me directly. Oops, I don't want to show all my messages, but that's okay. We'll get that back up. And message me directly, and I'll get you your copy of that software. And now I'm going to sign off and jump over to Big Daddy. Big Daddy, get your address up there if they don't have it, and I will tune you guys in to that in just a minute. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.